participants are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Monday, March 5th at 12:30 p.m. And I'm very pleased to be here on the Lunch Talk show for the Clearwater Bar Association with our guest, Debbie Foster. And if you don't know who Debbie Foster is and you've never worked with Debbie Foster, this is going to be a real treat for you because she's a very important local resource both for the Clearwater Bar Association and for our members. But before we get started, Karen France asked me to mention a few things. First of all, please mark your calendars for upcoming shows. You can go to www.clearwaterbar.org and get the information on these, and we're going to give you a little bit of information also. Secondly, we do have the 444 show on the fourth Thursday of every month. Please don't forget about that. Also, Karen does not like it when we show her picture. Now, on to page 3, the 444 show webinars. Please tune in, sign up, March 22nd. That's this Thursday, the last Thursday of this month, with Judge George Greer. He's going to come over to our office. We're also going to have Hamden Baskin III over here. And you're welcome to come by too, whoever you are, if you're interested. And we're going to have a real interesting discussion on mediation strategies and unwritten rules. And then the fourth Thursday after that, Judge St. Arnold's going to come over, and we're going to talk about probate and trust law for those who think they know it. And of course, you're welcome to come over to our office and sit in on those 2 live collaborative presentations. The next lunch talk will be Should I Stay or Should I Go, with my ex-partner London Bates, who decided to go. That should be an interesting discussion if you're in a law firm and you're thinking about hanging your own shingle or hanging your partner's. And May 7th, we're going to talk about Clearwater Bar Association member benefits. So Debbie, I'm going to turn it over to you here. Welcome, and we really look forward to hearing what you're going to say today.
Thank you, Alan. I'm leaving my contact information up here for just a second, and you all hopefully have this presentation by now, and I'm just going to invite you now to feel free to email me with any questions that you have about the topic that we're going to talk about today, which seems to be the thing that I get asked about the most. See if I can change here, which is the whole conversation about the cloud. Now, I think every day, probably 3 or 4 times a day, the consultants in our office get asked by attorneys, should I be in the cloud? Should I go to the cloud? What is the cloud? How do I get to the cloud? And I'm going to take a little bit of time today to kind of walk you through what the cloud means for lawyers and what kind of options you have when we start to talk about moving in that direction. I will say this, though. There are quite a few people who think that they aren't in the cloud now and they're never going to be in the cloud. And unless you're over maybe 70, that's just not true. I would say 10 years from now, everyone is going to be mostly in the cloud, if not sooner than that. And probably all of you are in the cloud in one way or another, and you maybe just don't even realize it yet. But we're going to kind of walk through a few different kinds of clouds, the public cloud, the private cloud, and what's probably the most common, which is a hybrid cloud, which is some of my stuff is in the cloud and some of it is not. I'm also going to take a little bit of time to describe the difference between the public cloud and a private cloud so everyone understands that as they go forward and start to have the conversations in their own offices about what is appropriate for your firm as far as being in the cloud. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what is called SaaS, or Software as a Service. And I've got the little You've Got Mail icon up there because for anyone who ever heard that come out of their computer speakers, which is most people in the world, and if you didn't, you probably saw the movie at least, so you know what that voice sounds like. If you ever had that voice come up telling you that you've got mail, you've already been in the cloud. And you've already used software as a service. AOL Mail is probably the most elementary example of a service provider providing you with a service, sometimes for a cost, and even now you can get it for free, and hosting data that you own because it's come to your email address. So it's, generally speaking, software that's developed and hosted by a vendor that you access over the internet. That's the general definition of software as a service. Now, of course, it's grown by epic proportions from those days of You've Got Mail, or even further back, thinking about prodigy mail back in the late 80s when we all first started getting those personal computers in our houses and getting introduced to what was mail. At that time, you could only get mail from another provider who, if I had a Prodigy account, I could get mail from other Prodigy people until it really expanded beyond that. So software as a service has been around for a long, long, long time. You can think of it as renting software. Instead of writing a big fat check and paying for it, you just pay an amount of money every month and you can rent software. So one of the things that I like to do is to make sure that everyone understands that I am keenly aware that there are a lot of cons related to going to the cloud. And some of those cons are going to go away over time, but a lot of them stay. They remain, and they maybe are minimized a little bit from what they are now, but it's definitely not all positives, and everyone should be there and everyone should go running and screaming towards the cloud. So just going through them very quickly. The pros: less of an upfront cost. No question, writing a smaller check is often more appealing than writing a bigger check. But you don't own anything, so you're paying to rent. Think of it as buying a house, renting an apartment. You pay rent forever and ever and ever and ever, and if you buy a house, presumably will only pay for 15 years or 30 years, provided that you stay there. But when you purchase software, you pay for it over a much shorter period of time, oftentimes just over that implementation period. Hardware is less of an issue. You don't need the kind of processing power to receive the data that comes from a hosted application on your personal computer. It's all delivered almost always through the web. So it's a browser interface for most of the providers that I'm going to walk through on the next slide. It's all delivered via the web, so it's all based on your internet connection. Operating system agnostic, another really important thing for those of you who want to use Macs in your practice and haven't figured out how to do that, and be able to use the software packages that you have come to know and love. Updates are included, so you don't pay extra for updates. Support is included. Oftentimes training is even included. You can access it from anywhere, anyone's computer, and the software as a solution providers are paid. One of the things that you're paying for is a redundant backup, and so you can be less concerned about backing up your data. Now switching over to the con side, there's no question that software as a service has an inferior feature set to the traditional software that you use. Some of the small firm packages that I'm sure you have, if not are using, you've heard of Time Matters, Amicus Attorney, PC Law, Tabs, Practice Master, what am I forgetting, a big one, Time Slips. Those software programs have been around forever, and they have evolved into what they are now. Features get added all the time. These software as a service products have not been around for a long, long time, and while they had a great model of what to build on because they could look at the traditional software packages, you still do not get the same kind of feature set with software as a service as you do with traditional software. Now, having said that, if you all think about your use of Word and WordPerfect, you would probably agree with me that if Word and WordPerfect have 100 features, you consistently use 11 of them. And so the reason why software as a service has become so popular is because even though they do have an inferior feature set, they have the main things, the 11 things that people use most often. Another con is integration. You just don't get the same kind of integration with other applications. So if I get, for example, let's take Clio or Rocket Matter, two of the most popular software as a service practice management systems for lawyers. Or on the next slide, you have a list of all the programs that I'm going to talk about. If I take Clio or Rocket Matter, they have some billing components, but they don't have any accounting components. And the slick integration that you would see between traditional software programs like Amicus and PC Law or Time Matters and PC Law, where the integration is live, the databases are talking to each other, you don't get that same kind of integration. More expensive, no question about it. Just doing the basic simple math. If you are a 5-person firm, you will spend, let's just say, easy math, $5,000 to implement a practice management program. And that's the software and the training and the customization and the whole 9 yards. if you decide to rent software as a service, and you go down the road of, let's say, Rocket Matter or Clio, and you pay an average of $50 a user a month, you're going to pay $250 a month for that software, and that quickly adds up to $3,000 over 1 year. So by the end of the second year, you've already paid more than what you paid for the software implementation to buy a traditional software program. So there's no question that it's more expensive, and you still really do need to get training. There's no magic bullet to the training solution. While some of them include training, you may want to have some additional training and have some personalized customization for your firm, which will cost money to do, obviously. There's the whole concept of once you're in, this is marriage, this is not dating. When you decide to go with a software as a service program, your data now lives in on their data servers, and if you want to leave and go move to something else, you're probably just going to get that data out in an Excel, CSV, comma delimited file to be able to bring into something else. It's not easy to switch. Now, I would say that is true for traditional software as well. Once you buy it, it's very difficult and oftentimes expensive to switch. No connection, no offline access. Now, that's not as big of a problem today as it was even a year ago, because even on an airplane, most times you have an internet connection. But if you want to work offline and access your system, you've got to have an internet connection to get there. There's typically no protection for price increases. So it costs whatever they say it costs. If it's $50 a month today and you get a 30-day notice that they're raising their cost to $60 a month, you can either pay $60 or quit. And nobody's really going to quit. That doesn't really make sense. And then the last thing is that upgrades just automatically happen. So when you log on the next day, you have the new version. There's good things about that, and there's bad things about that. The good things about that is that you don't have to worry about that. It's not your problem. They deal with all of the upgrades and updates. The bad news is if you don't like something new that they did, there's nothing you can do about it. You stay up to date on the latest. That's how they are able to support it as effectively as they can support the software, because they don't have 10 firms running 10 different versions or 100 firms running 10 different versions. So those are some of the pros and cons. Now, here's a list of some of the most popular applications that are case management related and also billing and accounting related. So Advalogix, Clio, Credenza, Houdini, Rocket Matter, and Total Attorneys has a program as well called Total Attorney something. The name just escaped me. But those are all links. If you have that in PowerPoint form or PDF form, you can click through and go to the websites and take a look at the different products out there. I say the same thing about software as a service applications as I do about traditional software. If there's 100 features, they all do all 100 of them. They just do them differently, and they look different. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. You want to go and take a look. For example, a program like Credenza is software as a service, but it runs strictly within Outlook, whereas Clio and Rocket Matter is run within your browser. So Credenza is an add-in to Outlook that allows you to keep track of your time and organize things by file. So there's a little difference between them, but they all generally essentially do the same thing. On the billing and accounting side, you have a list of software as a service billing and accounting providers. For those of you who don't feel like you need to have case management, but you just want to be able to bill and you don't want to deal with billing, and you have, especially if you're doing a lot of hourly billing, Bill for Time is something you should look at for sure. QuickBooks and FreshBooks are great, but they're not as easy to use if you're an hourly biller. If you're just looking for billing for maybe you're working on a contingency or a flat rate basis, those are a little bit easier to use. So these are the programs that I would suggest if you're interested in going down this road that you start to look at. These are the most popular, been around the longest. I have the least amount of concerns of any of these not being in 6 months or a year. Now that's another question that we get asked quite frequently. What if someone goes out of business? What if they can't pay their bills anymore? All of these software programs have a special kind of insurance that has a data center, data warehouse that keeps them up and running for a period of time. So if Clio is not going to do business anymore, they will have to keep your data accessible to you in that format for a period of time and give you sufficient notice. You should read all of their licensing and service agreements just so you understand what you're getting into in the event that something like that happens. There's also a new kind of web tool coming down the pike, a virtual law office portal, offering all different kinds of services, not just some CRM, client relationship management software, but a way for you to be able to not just keep track of who your clients are, but also workrooms where you can share data to research, just a whole, some of them have secretarial services where you pay a certain amount of money per month for a certain number of answers on your phone. So if you're a solo and you're looking for a way to do a little bit more without hiring someone, these are things that you might want to go take a look at.
Very interesting.
Yeah, those are some pretty neat, and there's more popping up all the time. Those are the ones that have been around for a while, though. And then moving on to the next, to the software as a service is kind of the, I want to stick my foot in, but I'm not ready to go all the way there yet. The second level of cloud computing is what's called hosted infrastructure, and this is more of the public-private cloud concept coming into play. With software as a service, you are in the public cloud. You are accessing over the regular internet, and you're accessing data that lives on a server where other people's data also lives. However, I would say that while everyone should be concerned about security, and I am also very concerned about security, I'm pretty convinced that every reputable software as a service solution provider, as well as every reputable hosted infrastructure provider, is keeping your data more secure than what office. You know, we think about things like cleaning people and people's kids, and you know, leaving something in the trunk of your car. You know, all kinds of just breaking and entering. These data centers are very few people are allowed into them. There are strict, specific credentials for people actually getting access to the servers. There's very few people who have full administrative access. So they've done a really great job of making sure that the security meets some of the, obviously, many of the bar associations have not put down a, yes, you can host your data, yes, you can use software as a service. No one's come right out and said that. Most of the opinions are about reasonable precautions and doing your own homework and making sure that you feel comfortable with the level of security that's being provided. But I see some pretty scary stuff out there. People's, their wireless networks that are connected directly to their law firm network have no password, and I can browse their networks pretty easily. You're just not going to have something like that with any of these hosted and software as a service solutions. They force you to have strong passwords, etc. But one of the newer things going into more of a private cloud situation is a hosted infrastructure concept, which means I just decide that I don't want to buy a new server. I want to use all the software that I use right now. Let's say Amicus Attorney and PC Law. I want to use all the software that I use right now, but I don't want it to live in my office anymore. I don't want to have to worry about backups. I don't want to have to worry about hurricanes. I don't want to have to worry about fire, flood, theft. I don't want to worry about any of that. About 8 months ago, my company went to a hosted infrastructure. We sent all of our data up to a company that's based in New York that replicates their data storage and data servers to another data center that's out in Colorado. And we said, if something were to happen, then God forbid, we haven't lost anything because all of our data lives somewhere else. Now, it's our data lives somewhere else on someone else's hardware, but it's our own private cloud, so other people don't have access to it. There's no one else's data on our servers. So you can see from this little diagram here, everything is dependent on the internet, of course. And so at our office, we have the fastest cable internet that you can buy, as well as a backup DSL line, which costs $50 or $60 a month. with a router that automatically fails us over. So if the fast connection fails, we just go to the slower connection. It's only happened one time since we've had it, but any more between access from our cell phones and tethering to our phones and our wireless access cards, we all have 9 different ways to connect to the internet, and I'm sure that's becoming more and more true in law firms as well. We have chosen to use a product called Citrix Zen app, which I'm going to take just a minute to tell you about because we could do a full one-day seminar on Citrix Zen app. What that does for us is, again, all of our on servers in New York replicated to Denver. When I log on to my computer in the morning, it checks for the internet connection, and then it delivers to me. You can see in the little boxes under the yellow bar that says Law Office, and it has a little Word icon and an Excel icon and an Outlook icon and an Amicus icon and a PC Law icon. When I log on, it just delivers all of those icons to me. They're just published. They're called published applications, and all of those icons are on my desktop. And when I double-click on my Amicus icon, I'm not running it anywhere in my building. I'm running it from a server that lives in New York that's replicated to Denver. That means that when I turn on and log into my Mac computer, my Amicus icon pops up on my desktop. And when I double-click on it, I log on just like I do here, and Amicus runs within a window. And that is all made possible by this product called Citrix Zen app, which is just the simplified terminology for Citrix Zen app is published applications. So again, very dependent on my internet connection, but I travel all the time, and I can tell you I use an air card all the time, and I run all of my applications over an air card with no issues. I also can run every one of my applications off of my iPad. Not quite as easy to do as my desktop, because I am one of the only people in the universe, I think, that thinks that an iPad is a phenomenal toy. And when I have to use it for business, I certainly can use it, but it is nothing that I would want to do on a full-time basis. I carry around my laptop or my MacBook Air, one or the other, and that's what I use when I'm out of the office for work. And my iPad is really just for quickly reading email, responding to an email, catching up on my reading, but I don't use it as a real productivity tool. So Citrix Zen app, if you are interested in going to the cloud, I would really encourage you, especially if you want to continue to use the applications that you're using, that you consider that. It's a little bit more expensive than a regular virtualizing and sending all of your data somewhere and accessing it no differently than if you use terminal services right now or terminal server to access your server. That's one option. The next option up from that is just published applications, so you don't have to be logging on to your computer and then logging on again to another desktop on a server somewhere and then running your applications. Now, same kinds of things exist as far as hosted solutions go, pros and cons. There's a pro of nothing in your office. Increased security and reliability, 99.999 guaranteed uptime. So as long as you have an internet connection, it's working. You don't have to worry about upgrades. Any upgrades that you do for your hardware, that's all done by your service provider. So there's no, I need a new server. One day when the data center decides that the server that your stuff is on is getting old, it just moves your stuff to another server. It's seamless. You don't even know that it happened. You can keep your existing software. That's the biggest thing. When someone says to me, I want to go to the cloud, I say, great, what kind of software are you using right now? They say, I use Outlook. Then they can have anything they want. They can go software as a service and just have a monthly rental that they pay to use a practice program if that's what they're looking to do. We can talk about lots of different options. But if I talk to someone about going to the cloud and they say, I have Time Matters and Time Slips, and I do not want to stop using those two programs, then a hosted solution with a hosted infrastructure is the best route because you can continue to use all of your existing software. I sleep better at night because I lose sleep when I think my clients are not getting good backups. It makes me nervous. Unfortunately, I'm typically more nervous than they are, but I like for people to know that their data is backed up. The other pro operating system agnostic. Like I said, you can run it. I mean, I could run it if I wanted to from my iPhone, not that that's practical. I can run it from my Android phone. I can run it from my iPad. I can run it from an Android tablet. I can run it from a Mac. I can run it from a PC. You pick, up to you. The cons, there's nothing in your office. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't walk into a room and see it. There it is. That's what I'm spending my money on. It's all somewhere else, a little bit like magic, all somewhere else. And then the 3-year cost comparison, there is no question it's more expensive. Any that moving to the cloud is going to make things less expensive is not telling you, is not representing the actual true cost of what it costs to go to the cloud. I can tell you from my office, we have 24 people. We pay about $2,500 a month for all of our infrastructure to be hosted in the cloud. I will never have to buy another server. I will never have to do a server upgrade. I'll still have to pay for software upgrades if I choose to upgrade the existing software that I'm using. But I'm never going to have to pay for that again. But $2,500 a month is $30,000 a year. I guarantee you I could buy servers for $30,000 a year. But what I can't buy is access from anywhere, and people in offices, if you ever have considered opening up a second office, this is just, it's a great solution. That second office people always feel like the redheaded stepchildren. They don't get the same kind of technology and service as the main office people do. So there's no doubt about it, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but in comparison, you can do access from anywhere, security, reliability, data backups, redundancy in data backups. Nothing compares to being able to have that kind of peace of mind with having your data somewhere else. Switch. So what's next? That's we'll wrap this up. Like I said at the beginning, as hard as it may be for people to believe, this is the direction that we're going. Everyone is moving to the cloud. Whether it be just in an environment where you're using a software as a service product, or you're getting an add-on to Outlook where your data is stored somewhere else, this is where we're going. If you haven't read about what Microsoft is doing with Microsoft Office, with monthly subscriptions now to Microsoft Office and running Office in a published application environment, they're moving in that direction. So you're going to have less and less people who are even buying a box that says Microsoft Office and installing the 5 applications on their machine. So the large software vendors are going there. The small software vendors are going there. The small software vendors are also looking for the most cost-effective ways to deliver software to people. And the traditional software programs out there, while all of them are building cloud models, the other thing that they're doing is trying to find less expensive ways for people to implement their software. So they're trying to find out how they can do monthly pricing. So instead of you being enticed to software as a service because you only have to pay the first and last month, how can we price traditional software and price it in a way that it's as enticing as software as a service? So this is an ever-changing, nailing Jell-O to a tree kind of concept, the cloud, new providers coming out every day, something definitely to stay up to date on. I would encourage all of you, if you are not subscribers to TechnoLawyer, which is just tech.com, it's free to subscribe, and it's maybe 4 or 5 emails every week. I would really encourage you to subscribe to TechnoLawyer. They publish a lot of great articles on the cloud and great resources that are available to firms of all sizes to do a proper analysis of if the cloud really is the right thing for you. And like I said at the beginning, here's my contact information again. I am more than happy to answer any specific questions that any of you have on moving to the cloud, or just giving you some advice about what direction I think you should go, whether it be cloud or stay down the traditional software road. Please feel free to send me an email, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Alan, do you want to?
Debbie, that was a wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very well put. Where do you think, what do you think the biggest differences will be in 3 years and 5 years from now, for those of us who hope to hold out that long before our next big changes?
You know, I think the 3-year question, and this kind of depends where you are in the upgrade cycle. The next big question for everyone who has to spend money on an infrastructure upgrade, so time for new servers or new routers or whatever it is that you have to spend a lot of money on, is it today? Is today the day that we make the decision to not spend this money and we move to the cloud? I think that's the next decision point for everybody, is do I invest in infrastructure one more time, or do I really consider the cloud? And if you choose to invest, it just means that the next 3, 4, 5-year decision is going to be, okay, everybody else is doing it, I better really consider going to the cloud. So will you be an early adopter, or are you going to kind of ride the wave right now and see where it shakes out, which, by the way, I do not think is a bad idea. There's a lot of changes. Every time I do this presentation, there's something different that I say than I said before, because it really is just an ever-changing, ever-growing area of where people are investing money and investing time. I think that, but I do think that 5 to 10 years down the road, we will all have our data hosted somewhere else. It will be very rare for people to have servers in their office. It just won't make sense.
Wow.
Especially in you know, our targeted audience when we're talking about the Tampa Bay area, the St. Pete Clearwater Bar Associations. You know, we're talking about 25 people or less encompasses the vast majority of the membership. You know, your large firms are going to have servers on site forever.
Right.
And they may just be specific servers that do particular jobs, but the small firms are going to be the ones who really are, just from an economy of scale perspective and deciding how much money they really want to spend on hardware, they're going to be the ones who are moving away from traditional.
I see. Okay, well, that concludes our presentation. You've got Debbie's phone number and email address there. Any questions you have, please give her a call or send her an email. Any suggestions you might have for our bringing Debbie back and what you would like for her to speak on will be very much appreciated. There she is again. And don't forget our upcoming 444 show webinars. Please sign up for March 22nd so you can ask the hard questions for George Greer, the questions you were afraid to ask him when he was a judge. Thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next 444 show. Thanks again, Debbie.
No problem. Thanks, Alan. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected. Goodbye.